Thank you all for being here with us today. This is Erman with HorrOrigins 2021. We are in the middle of the virtual portion, I believe, of the film festival. So I thank you all for screening your films. I saw a few of them at the screening in Tucson 2 weeks ago. A lot of fun. So we have Renetta G. Amador, director and producer of Processing. Hey, Renetta.
Hi.
Zach Eglinton, writer, director, and actor of Gastral Projection. Hey, Zach.
Hello.
With Alex Montilla, writer, director, editor, and composer for Overkill. Did I say right? Composer?
Yeah, I'll go composter.
Co-composter with Overkill. Fantastic. And we have, last but not least, we have Jeremy Herbert, co-writer, director, and editor of The Things with the Glowing Green Eyes, and writer of Do Not Disturb Whatever Is in 255. How are you doing today, sir?
Pretty good. Better now.
Awesome. It's cool. We are a few days away from Halloween, so it's actually really timely that we get to have this conversation. Personally, what I love about horror, because I'm a writer myself, and I'm getting more into horror, and what I love about horror is that, like, how fun is it to be entertained by what scares us, right? We live in a world where everything is scary. Everything scares us. So, like, it's cool to make those kinds of projects. So, first off, I'm just curious. This has nothing to do with movies, but what are your Halloween plans this upcoming weekend?
I'll go first. I'm going to go see the Danny Elfman Nightmare Before Christmas concert, and then go to the Dia de los Muertos celebration at the Hollywood Forever Cemetery, and then flying to Austin for a film festival.
I have no plans. I think I'm going to take my kid trick-or-treating, so that'll be fun.
Are you going to dress up as anything yourself?
Yeah, we're dressing up as the kids from Bob's Burgers. So.
Oh, fantastic. Amazing.
Yeah.
I don't know if I have anything on the books. I'll probably make some kind of a dip, maybe an elaborate dip, watch some horror movies.
Now, Jeremy, I don't know if you did this on purpose, but you worked on The Things with the Glowing Green Eyes, and your room has a tint of green, which I think is actually pretty cool. Mm-hmm. Did you do that on purpose?
Complete coincidence. I don't know what you're talking about.
Amazing.
Looks like Christmas.
It looks like Christmas. Yeah, with the red, the blood red, with the green.
I'm looking forward. People will watch this in December as well.
Yeah, I think so. So, yeah, if we can just briefly talk about each person, talk about their project and, their creative process to it. Like I said, I watched your projects myself, and I absolutely love them. So, Renetta, if you talk about processing, really cool concept. I think it was like set in one location, right?
It was.
Awesome.
We did 2 set builds. The inside of the bathroom had to be built, and we had to build the interrogation room. But it actually was a prop warehouse storage place for a prop master I knew. And so he was selling it, getting out of the business. He was like, you can come in and film and do whatever you want.
So if you could talk briefly about how you came up with the idea, a little bit to why you decided to make it.
And actually, I didn't write it. A friend of mine, I work as a script supervisor in the business, and I was working on this movie called The Curse of La Llorona. And the writer of that movie was like, I've been watching you, you're ready to direct, and I have a friend who has a script I think you'll love. And so when I read it, it's a feature film. And I'm like, this is great, but I'm a script supervisor. Nobody's going to give me the kind of money to make this. But if you can pull a short film out of it I don't want a proof of concept. I want an actual standalone short. Then I will give everything I have to make this short. And so what he came up with was processing, which interestingly enough is actually what happens next. The whole movie is about Marcus, who we only briefly see in the short at the beginning and the end. But the short film is actually about the cops. So I thought he did a really great job in bringing that short film out. And then it was up to me to figure out how to make it come to life. And the most challenging thing was no offense to writers, but everything's very elaborate in the scripts. So it was, in order to find out that the place was one and the same, it was written as a series of mazes. Then he runs through this and it turns into that and it goes here. And I'm like, I can't do that in 3 days with the budget that I have. So when I walked into that prop house to check it out, I noticed they had a tiny kitchen set up. And I realized then that I can make the break room and the interrogation room one and the same. So it was a year of prepping for it. It was a very long process. My lead actor played Frank was very sick at the time, and I gave him the option to bow out, but he was like bound and determined that was the role he wanted to play. So I feel very fortunate about that.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
very, it was very tough. There were many things, as everybody on this, panel can attest to. So many things went wrong. But at the same time, there was so much magic to it as well that went right in ways I didn't expect. I ended up having to actually build the sets myself, which I've never done in my life. It was like the coldest week in LA ever, and that bathroom had no ceiling because the intent was to do an overhead shot, which didn't happen. But everything, it was just like, it was so cold that the blood dried on the walls instead of dripping down. And so, there was a lot more visual effects than I anticipated because some things just practically didn't happen the way we wanted them to. But the look was very specific because I'm a huge fan of Asian horror. Horror is my favorite genre. And so the look of it was very important to me. I wanted the warehouse to feel alive, a living, breathing entity. I wanted it to be warm and red and fleshy colors, but I wanted the interrogation room to be that sickly green that you get in a lot of, like our friend over here, that you get like in a lot of horror movies where you feel unsettled, but you don't know why. So that was very intentional on my part. And I was very fortunate because the writer wasn't very precious with what he had written. So
that's good.
Yeah. So as we got there, organically, things were just different than he had written on the page. And he really gave me all the freedom. He was like, I trust you 100% in your vision. So, I was rewriting and I was changing this and changing that. And he was very gracious about it. And I think that we came out with a really great project in the end.
Look at you go. That's what's up. Your very first, is this your first?
It's my first directing debut. Yeah. It was very ambitious. I was like, next time, okay, can we just have like no walls bleeding? No dead bodies melding into the floor. That would be great.
And really quick, for those who haven't seen it, could you give a little, maybe like a log line of the film?
Sure. Our tag, so to speak, is basically the truth won't always set you free. And so the short basically is about these two cops who are going into this warehouse to investigate the disappearance of some women that they're for sure the guy who lives there has something to do with. But he keeps telling them, no, I'm telling you, it's the warehouse, it's the warehouse. So they go in to investigate it and find out, quote unquote, truth, which is not really what they had hoped. I think that's kind of fair without giving away too much.
And we have by the way, we have a newcomer coming in. What's up, Trevor? How you doing?
I am doing good.
Good to see you on here. Yeah, no worries. We're just kind of going around talking about our projects and the creative process behind it. So we'll get to you in a second, but we're fortunate to have you here. So we have Alex. Alex, I love Overkill because I'm a big fan of horror comedy, right? And you you have a premise that I don't want you to say it. I don't want to say it for you, but you have a premise that's it's very entertaining, and people won't expect it until it happens, right? Mm-hmm. So tell us a bit about the movie Overkill and how you came up with it, and I want to get to your villain. I want to get to your villain at some point, but let's talk about like the idea behind Overkill.
Okay. So the idea, I'll get to what the idea is, but the idea came about in 2012. My brother and I were at a film festival, and just came out of the bathroom and said, "Your next movie should be about a slasher who doesn't die." That's all he said, and I just went and wrote it. So the idea for it is basically your typical slasher setup, kids at the lake and all that. And then the slasher shows up, and the final girl takes him out, and he comes back, and then she takes him out again, and he comes back, and she takes him out again, and he comes back. So, it's basically kind of turns into a Looney Tunes cartoon by way of a slasher movie.
But there are some really cool shots in there that I thought were very creative, and it kind of surpassed just the idea of it being a comedy, a horror comedy. So like I remember that shot, the camera was like navigating the room, and the killer was about to come into the room, and there's some really cool stuff in there. I think something that stands out is the part where the final girl impales the killer, and he dies, and then the lightning strikes, and he comes back to life. And I remember the people in the theater were howling.
Oh, good.
It was so funny. So, what was your favorite kill in there?
That one's my favorite kill, because it's it works just in and of itself that she's impaling him in a tree with the American flag, and he won't die, so the lightning hits and he dies, and the lightning hits again and it brings him back. So it just kind of keeps building. So I think that's the best one. But I think the one that gets the biggest reaction, because we're still kind of like you said, the first half of the movie is pretty much just a straight slasher movie. Like I didn't really put too much comedy in there beyond like just character stuff. But the one that gets the biggest reaction is the fire poker to the eye when he's pulling it out and it goes in and all that stuff. It gets a big reaction usually with the audience.
So not to spoil anything, but
too late. We already did it.
I remember the boyfriend character when he gets actually killed. Now, when I first watched it, I was thinking, oh, overkill, maybe because the boyfriend keeps coming back to life, but he does eventually get it. And when it does happen to him, I thought it was super funny. But at first, I was like, maybe he's the one who gets killed over and over and over and over. But the killer is the one that keeps coming back.
Yeah, there. It's kind of just a silly movie. So to put a real deep meaning in it, I think is maybe not necessary. But there is something there that I talked with a friend of mine about, where there's really two male characters and one female character, and both of the guys die and come back and die and come back. Like, it happens a couple of times. So there's something there. I don't know what, like, some metaphor that maybe we accidentally threw in there, but yeah, it's all overkill, I guess is the idea.
Love it. Up next, we have Zach, writer and director and actor of Gastral Production. So let's talk about your story a little bit, Zach.
So I had a short film that had just kind of finished doing its festival thing, and I just wanted to do another short. I had a bunch of shorts lined up, and then the pandemic happened, so then it shut everything down. So I was just moving into this house, and I was like, it's got to be something I can do with an empty house. So I was got my wife together with me, and we just made this short about a guy farting out his soul. And it just just wanted to do another short, and I wanted to see if it was possible to take something that's used only for comedy and kind of create something that uses that same tool for horror instead. So that's kind of what that was all about.
And what were the challenges of not just directing it, but being in it?
I don't know. I mean, it's always hard to be in front of the camera, but also kind of like just jump back, just kind of like play everything back all yourself. I mean, it was only me and my wife that were doing everything, so it was kind of just a difficult. Like, I had a monitor, so I could watch myself a little bit, just keep myself in frame. But I mean, I like acting, so it wasn't super hard for me to kind of at least get into that zone.
Copy that. Awesome, Zach. Up next, we have Jeremy with the green tint there. So co-writer, director, editor of The Things with the Glowing Green Eyes. Another, I guess you could say, horror comedy. I love the setup, town hall, these citizens come and share their stories of the same exact entity. So talk about your creative process with that story, Jeremy.
Well, I think you said it as horror comedy. I guess it's an odd mix, and it was made in self-defense. We started shooting on a completely different movie that was more of a straight-ahead horror drama. We shot a day of it, and then it became clear the scheduling on it. We might still be shooting it, and I didn't want to do that. I was looking at a move. We needed to get something done. So I'd made 2 movies previously with Thing in the name. And the gag for both of them, this was not planned as any kind of series. There's no, besides Morgan McLeod in the lead, there is no commonality across all 3. But the connective tissue is that each thing is a metaphor. But hopefully, if you don't get the metaphor, the movie still works on its own. That's the hope. So me and my feature co-writer, Wolf Stahl, looked at what we shot. And I said, I want to keep it. What can we write around this? And the eye tech was from that original movie. So we're like, so we have glowing eyes. What can we do with this? And what you see is what we did. So we figured out what we wanted the thing to be, what would make sense with what we had. And we worked backwards and wrote a relatively dopey setup with a bunch of a local color in the small town. And each of them, to restate the plot for anyone who hasn't seen it, it's very sparsely attended town hall meeting. The mayor asks if there's any other business. One of the townsfolk asks what he's going to do about the things with the glowing green eyes. And this starts a slow avalanche for each of the other people at the meeting. Also has a story of seeing these things and would also like to know what he's going to do about them. And that's it. That's really about all there is.
And I love the fact that like each town person had a story to tell, and the mayor's like, "So how did you survive it? How'd you get away from it?" And no one had an answer.
Mhm.
And was that done? Yeah, was that done on purpose?
Yes, because that is something. I could just tell you what the thing is, what the metaphor is at the heart of it all, because that's exactly why no one really has a clean answer as to how to deal with these things.
If you want, feel free to do so. No pressure.
Right. Anyone watching this, if you don't want to know, just cover your ears for approximately 10 seconds. The things are depression. And each person's story is a slightly different shade of it. Some more severe than others. And how they deal with it is entirely different. With that in mind, the sheriff's is hands down the bleakest story. And something like the mechanic story is more of just a misunderstanding that spiraled. And the B&B owner, for instance, she literally just sleeps until it goes away, and then she's normal again for a while. But that's what we tried to thread through everything.
Wow, your horror comedy just got deep there. No, because you mentioned the B&B owner and how she slept through it, woke up and it was fine. Like now I get it. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Hopefully it doesn't spoil it for anybody else. But thank you so much, Jeremy. Last but not least, we have Trevor. Trevor, writer and director of Under the Surface. Welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Of course, yeah. Talk about your story, your film, and your creative process behind it.
Under the Surface just kind of was just a cool idea we initially just had, which was like, oh man, what if this guy kind of was, he gets pulled into like the water and he keeps waking up in different areas. Wasn't the initial idea, kind of loosely based off this SCP that I had read about. I believe it was SCP-1128. There was kind of this creature that could like teleport people through water and stuff. I thought it was a really unique idea. And then my brother, who was the cinematographer on the film, and Dylan, who was the main actor of the film, we were just kind of pitching ideas and coming up with different things. So it's kind of hard to pinpoint who came up with what at this point. But I kind of took the best of what everything we had come up with and kind of just try to create this concept and kind of fielded into this script. And it was right right after quarantine had kind of really begun. So we kind of lucked out when we actually wanted to shoot this scene on this beach because nobody was out there. So we went out there and were able to shoot the scene and in the rest of the film and in quarantine after, aside from that one scene. And I think it turned out pretty good.
Something I love about horror is that you can tell a great story with a limited budget. But of course, even if you had a limited budget, you still got to have enough money to pull out some really great shots. So for each of you, what did you work with? And what resources do you have to work with, and how did you accomplish certain shots, especially your favorite shots? And anyone can jump in. Anyone can jump in.
I can probably go first. We have some really, I think, unique shots, particularly in this kind of void scene. And that one just required a lot of green screen, a lot of time, a lot of effort from our VFX people that we had hired. It took months, but I think they did a fantastic job on it. And there's just, for us, we just wanted to create like a lot of visceral horror and shots. It was very like, we didn't really want to, we didn't want to shy away from a lot of stuff that, we wanted to really show the horror, I guess, is and a lot of people get kind of uncomfortable when you first show it to them. Like we just showed it at another film festival, and you kind of feel in the audience, they're like, "Ooh, it's a little." I was not anticipating this, and that's always kind of a fun thing when you're able to show and not really shy away from some of the more, I guess, darker images. And a lot of people seem to love the kind of unique visuals, especially of the void scene. So. That's for me.
My favorite shot is the opening shot I did to introduce the warehouse. It was almost a 3-minute Steadicam shot. And I actually lost my producer over it 3 weeks before we started shooting, because he said, well, you're a first-time director. You guys always want this shit. But sorry, I didn't mean to guess. But he's like, you're going to get into editing and you're going to wish that you had coverage. And my thought process was, number one, this is an amazing space and this will be an amazing way to show it. But if I can't do that kind of stuff on the short film that I'm paying for, when can I do it? Because if I get to make that feature and, we get funding from other sources, which we would need to, there are going to be so many more people calling the shots. This was my chance to do whatever I wanted to do creatively and to try to be, interesting with it. So I was wrapping up a show and I was at a wrap party, and one of my favorite Steadicam operators had a few cocktails, and he was like, how can I donate to your short? I'm like, well, why don't you just give me 8 hours of Steadicam time? Yes, I may have caught him at a vulnerable moment, but he said yes, and he honored it for me. And we rehearsed it for about 4 hours, because it's 3 minutes long. And there were so many, the set, of course, was many little, we call them little alleyways, and going to different parts of the warehouse, and following 2 actors together and then separate them and having to choreograph, different dialogue that we felt we wanted to see on camera, but I didn't feel we needed to see everything on camera. And I was very fortunate that it actually worked out, and it's my favorite shot. And I'm glad that I really fought for it, even though it meant that I ended up having to produce my short myself, which was a pain, but I'm super proud of that one. It's the one that people are always like, oh, that is, how did you get that done? And I'm like, well, lots of rehearsals. But that's mine. That's my favorite shot.
Love it. Well, the 4 hours panned out for you for sure.
Yeah.
Alex, you have what was there a particular scene that you love? But I also love to know like the resources you had to get that shot done, especially from a financial standpoint.
Sure. So I was very fortunate because my DP had a bunch of friends and favors. Like basically my whole movie was favors. I mean, the movie was maybe $12,000 the whole thing, which to me sounds like a lot of money, but the more I've done festivals and talked to people, I'm like, oh, I spent next to nothing. but we got like a free rental from Panavision. We just had to take out insurance because he had connections and had really nice lenses from that. I mean, it was very minimal in terms of the finances of what we had to do. But the best shot of the movie is we have that big 360 through the house, and just lucky that my friend let me shoot at his house, and that he happens to be a filmmaker, so he has like a garage full of equipment and lights, so we could hang all the lights. And one of the camera guys happened to have like a movie that would fit the red we were shooting on. So just luck after luck after luck for me in terms of kind of camera equipment and all that kind of stuff and how we pulled it off.
Thank you so much. How about you, Zach?
So we had $0, but that's fine because I have a camera, a Blackmagic 6K. So technically it would be like a $2,000 short if I added that in there. But so we were just kind of like, with the two of us, we couldn't really pull off a lot. But there's one shot that I really, really love. Because it's like one of my favorite types of scares in movies. It's just that it's like there's something there, but you really can't see it until it moves. And that was just kind of thought of on the day. And I guess that's my favorite thing that we got. I was like, it was just kind of like, what if we did it this way? Because originally it was just going to be like, a standard, like blah, but just try to do something different. And I don't know, I did a lot of different things or things I've never done before on this short, just to kind of like experiment with certain techniques and stuff. So I had a lot of fun making it. It was just like a giant learning experience, which I like to do on everything I do. I usually try and force myself to do something that I have never done before, just so I can kind of like continually, I guess, grow as a filmmaker. But yeah, there's just a shot. It's like in between, it's like in a doorway, hallway area, and it's just, I had a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun editing that part because it was just like, oh God, it worked. Because if it scares the person that's seen it like 100 times, I mean, it works for me, so I hope it works for anybody else that's watching it. But yeah,
Amazing, and kudos to you for having $0.
I'm sure everybody had when it breaks it all down. It's nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing to spend money on.
And how about you, Jeremy?
I believe we had about $300 to make that movie. The heaven and hell of it were the eyes, because they were all, none of them were in post. We had light up eyes. If you got close enough or lit them, they looked like the poor man's night vision goggles. We mounted them to like dollar store glasses with wire kind of branches to hold the LEDs. And what that meant is for each person, you had to be careful that they didn't bounce back and catch any of their face. If they moved, they might wiggle or start blinking. It was rough. The shot across the parking lot where the mechanic sees the first one, we just ran Wolf across the parking lot wearing eyes. And it looks great, and that was great. My favorite shot in terms of actually trying to make it work is when the sheriff gets out of his car in the woods. Because at first we were figuring out how we were going to maneuver a car to get the headlights. And then I just said, well, no, just put up the LED panels. And then we had an insect fogger filled with mineral oil, and we fogged it to within an inch of its life. And then we lit it, and we only had to do it 1 or 2 times. And we were all just like, yep, that's as good as we're going to get on anything in this movie.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that all. And so my next question has to do with inspiration, because I assume that as horror filmmakers, you're also horror lovers. So what did you take away from a movie or franchise that inspires you that helped you pull off your effective scares?
My whole movie is, kind of an homage to Friday the 13th and those types of camp slasher movies. So for me, it was easy. I watched all those movies and just ripped it off. I just stole everything I possibly could and thought that we could pull off. So that's all I did.
I took mine from several movies. I love the music from The Invitation. And so when my composer was creating the sound for it, I made him watch The Invitation because I wanted some jarring type music for it. But for me, it was psychological horrors. It's I think, one of the big things is like choosing to, people choose their own reality and what they want to believe that makes their life easier. There's the reality that none of us really see, outside of us. There's our version of reality and somebody else's. And so I really went back and watched a lot of the psychological horror movies that really I am really fascinated by the human mind. I'm fascinated by serial killers, and do they tap into a section of their brain that most of us don't? And that's why they do these horrible things. So that's kind of where I went with all of mine, Helter Skelter, those kind of movies, to kind of think more about the mind.
Love that. Anyone else?
I'll
let you go. You go.
Okay. It was going to happen eventually.
Yep.
I certainly borrowed more than a little perhaps from The Fog, but the deeper fear to it, I find that without even thinking about it, I'm drawn towards the tension of still things that should not be still. There are a couple shots that really stand out in my head. What perhaps the most is a shot in Halloween 3 in the junkyard, when you very briefly see the line of shadowed, spoiler alert, robots in their suits just kind of standing still. The tension of that really gets to me. And so obviously the whole movie is just the idea of these things slowly getting closer and closer to you without ever actually seeming to move.
Yeah, that's creepy. Like when you see something that's still and you turn away and you turn back, somehow it's closer to you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, great. Trevor, I think you had something to say.
Yeah, first of all, another Halloween 3 fan, I assume. So yeah, Season of the Witch. Second of all, for me, like I said, it was kind of like there was something I'd read about, SCP-1128, if memory serves, was probably the biggest inspiration on the film. I've seen some people kind of briefly compare it to, like, not compare it, but like say, hey, this kind of reminds me of Stranger Things, which maybe, but that's not where my head was at when I was writing it. But yeah, I mean, I really dig like ambiguity and like the fear of like the unknown. Like, if I went ahead and explained every single thing, like of course I have my ideas of what's going on and under the surface, but I've seen some people pitch me their theories about what they think is going on. I'm like, yeah, that could just as well be it too. I like kind of like these open to interpretation, multiple meanings, different meanings, and just kind of the ambiguity of things. I think is very, very cool, and I feel like a lot of our films really, at least a lot of films that I work on, kind of dive into that, where you don't always have solid answers to what's going on.
Amazing. And last but not least, Zach, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I mean, if you watch the film, I'm sure you can spot like three like very obvious references, which is The Fog, and also Insidious and Sinister, kind of all in the same scene. But yeah, I thought adding all those. I mean, I think those are some of my favorite ghost stories for sure. So I just wanted to put those references, which I watch pretty often. At least The Fog I watch many times, and Halloween 3 too as well.
Yeah, looks like we have some Season of the Witch fans in this room.
I think I need to go see it.
For Zach, I worked on Insidious.
Hey,
Well, I mean,
That's cool.
it's an awesome movie, and
It was a blast. It was really fun.
yeah, it looked,
Having to eat lunch with those demons every day.
that's awesome.
Renetta, that was the first movie I watched in the theater where I actually jumped into a girl's lap. You know the scene behind the demon
I
head.
knew it was coming and I jumped. Like I love when I work on a horror movie, I love to go see it in the theater to see how the audience reacts to what we did.
Yeah.
And I think it scared me more than the people I was with that had never seen it.
Yeah. Amazing
It's
shot.
ridiculous. Yeah.
Amazing shot. Now,
Not
here's
to
a
be a one-upper, but I worked on Halloween 3. No big deal.
Ooh.
Just kidding.
I love Halloween 3. I think that it
I've
would have
never
been
seen it.
I think it would have been so great if it hadn't have been associated with the Halloween franchise.
like a standalone. Yeah.
Yeah, if it was standalone and just Season of the Witch, I think that it would have done a lot better.
Yeah.
I just saw Exorcist 3. That's pretty good. I was surprised.
It's not bad.
Yeah.
I just saw Titan. I'm still trying to process that. No pun intended.
Oh, no pun intended. Yeah, for processing. Good one. Here's a fun question. Maybe not all of you have an answer for it, but did any of you have to confront any of your own personal fears, whether it's psychological or physical, in shooting your projects?
No, but I gained a fear of shooting at night.
Good one.
I always have a fear of what I can't see. Like I grew up very, I am of Mexican descent, and we have a lot of folklores, and so I always think that there's something there that I'm not seeing. So I spent a lot of time in that warehouse by myself, which is in the middle of nowhere, Torrance, and I was always spooked out. And it really made me made me question a lot of reality, because that's where I started thinking about the fact that even when you tell a story, there's your version and somebody else's. So it really made me think about that a lot and question that, but it was fun.
Yeah, I love to hear it. I am Filipino, so we also have a lot of folklores, and I'm like, oh, is there something around?
I know, like I hear footsteps. I'm like, I've had 3 different people walk into my apartment asking me who the old man is that walks up and down my hallway, and these people didn't know each other. And I was just like, okay, that's not what I need to hear when I'm about to go into this warehouse by myself, but okay, thanks.
That is crazy.
In general, I'm just kind of a spooky person.
That's nuts. Wow, that's your own. You need to write your own story there. Anyone else?
So I told you what the subtext is, once again, for anyone that wants to hide, cover your ears. It's depression. And it just kind of occurred to me, and Wolf agreed, like it was an interesting thing to look at. And across the movie, the point is that these are people who are, without admitting they have this problem, admitting they are suffering from something, and that's ultimately what happens to the mayor. And the only way they can keep them at bay for any amount of time is to admit this is a problem. That's the ending of the movie. That's why they disappear when they talk about it. And that was kind of my reluctant admission that, this is something I need to be aware of as well, because the movie was grueling enough as it is, and then I started spiraling and thinking, like, I'm never doing this again. I don't want to do this. This is terrible. I'm putting everyone through hell. I mean, it was a tough shoot, but no one was angry at me or anything. But I just kept compounding deeper and deeper, and I realized only when I kind of cut the thing, like, oh, whoops, that's a little bit of autobiography there.
I think in going with what you're talking about, I think I can speak for myself, but I feel like all of us had that feeling like, what the hell am I doing? And why am I putting these people through it? At one point, I ended up having to do all my own returns. So I spent a whole day traveling from Torrance to Pasadena to North Hollywood to Hollywood on a Friday. Like, I was on the side of the highway at one point just sobbing, like, what the hell have I done with my life? Like I had a nice little scripty life, like what is this all about? It was, 3 days of, it was cold and you're like, just because it's my vision doesn't mean it has to mean anything to anybody else. But then when it's all said and done, what I'm finding out is like, it was a really great experience for people and I'm really proud of the project. But it really, I get it now when people say it's like childbirth, and especially like what I don't have children, but what I've read is like, once you have a child, you kind of don't remember the pain of it. Otherwise, nobody would ever have a second child. That's what I equate filmmaking to at this point, like directing. Like I loved it and there was a lot of magic, but it's also really hard.
My family has a saying: if you ever go on vacation someplace and you have a miserable time, when you get home, if anyone asks what you think or whatever, you just kind of have to say, "Oh yeah, we'll go back as soon as we forget," and that's what making movies is.
Oh, absolutely. And we made our short. We had a little extra added pressure in the fact that we knew that was probably the last thing my lead actor would ever act in. And there was just such a tremendous amount of pressure. But I have kudos to every filmmaker and every project because you give a little piece of yourself to it every time, if not a big piece of yourself you put into that. And the great thing about it is it's immortalizing. It's there forever. And there's always things I'm always like, oh, but I wish we'd gotten that shot. I wish we'd done this, or I could have had time for that. But I'm trying to learn really hard to stay in the moment of what I did accomplish and how special that is. And that, I got all these people to go on the ride with me.
And that is the perfect way to end this chat. Everyone give yourselves a round of applause. I'm super proud of what you guys accomplished in your projects. I'm a fan of yours and hopefully we can stay in touch and, hear from more about what you folks are up to in the future. And, Godspeed to your upcoming horror films.
Nice to meet everybody.
Thank you
So much.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you all.
Take care, folks.